Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. I got one more thing I want to do to the Fox body here before I go and road test it. Last video you probably saw that I got the transmission T56 swap pretty much done. I just got to road test it, but I wanted to put a catch can on here first before taking it on the road. One of the issues with the why I want to put a catch can on it is most of you kind of know on a supercharged or blown engine, you get some vapor and you get some oil that comes out of the valve covers if you have it vented. So I want to take care of that, get rid of that. I do actually I get some oil that runs down my breathers and stuff like that, kind of down the engine. So I just want to get that cleaned up. When I first put this engine together, I kind of struggled trying to find just the right vents or breathers that fit on here, just because there's so much going on with the engine. But I ended up finding these small K&N filters that fit in there. And I knew at that time too that they kind of leak, or you'll get oil that runs out of there. So you can kind of see, I have a little shield. Some of these breathers come with shields on them, but they stick out away from the filter and they don't actually seal it up. So I actually took an exhaust band clamp and I cut it up and made it fit and glued it. So anything that might come out of here isn't going to run down and drip down here. It would kind of stay in there or run back down into the engine once it kind of filled up, being it's at an angle here. But the where I'm getting the actual leaking from is around the rubber grommet on here. You know, over time, the rubber grommet just gets kind of dried out or rubbery and doesn't seal as good as it used to. So I want to take care of that. So I went and ordered a catch can right from Motion Raceworks. So I'll show you that in a second here, but what I'll have to do is end up taking the intake off, get the valve covers off, so I can get to them. But I also think my valve covers are leaking a little bit too, so I want to double check the gaskets, make sure they're not cut or anything, see what's going on there. Maybe they're just slightly loose. I do have my bolts Loctited, so I don't know, maybe the bolts are tight, but maybe the gasket's just moving around a little bit. So, but it shouldn't take too long to get that stuff off there and get down to the nitty gritty and see what we can do. But I'll show you here what I actually want to put in there and where I want to put the catch can. So this is what I ordered from Motion Raceworks. This is their catch can here. It basically, they have kits that you can buy that come with kind of the hose and the fittings and all that stuff. I can't remember if they actually have them specific to certain vehicles or not. I don't think so. I think you just kind of buy different kits. But some of their, kind of when I looked at their kits, they didn't quite fit my requirements, so I just ordered the can itself. It does not come with these two fittings. I had to order those separately, but comes with the catch can here, the filter that goes on top, and this bracket here. I already kind of did some kind of looking at where I was going to mount it, and I ended up making a different bracket for it. You can kind of see one's a little bit taller this way or longer, sticks out further. So I'll show you that where I'm going to be mounting it, and you'll understand. But very good quality catch can here. You can basically position it in a bunch of different spots, whatever way you want to turn it. It does come with either a plug or this drain on there. So very good quality, but I ended up buying just some fittings and hose off of Summit. This is basically a 6-foot chunk of hose here that should be long enough for me. A couple of 90s and some 45s. Like Motion Raceworks, their kits, I can't remember if they come with 2 straights and 2 90s or if it's 4 90s, but I needed some 45s where I was going to mount it, so that's why I kind of went with my own fittings. And then I also ordered some Dash 10 bungs. All of this is Dash 10 hose and fittings, but this is what I wanted to use on the valve cover and actually weld it to the valve cover. And but this itself is too small for that hole. So what I'll end up doing is I ordered these other aluminum bungs. These are like for fuel tanks and stuff like that. You can see it's got a step there. So this diameter here on the bottom, or on top in the picture here, is just slightly smaller than the hole in the valve cover. So I'll put that into the valve cover, weld that in, and then I'll weld this right to that. So instead of that filter sitting on top of the valve cover, this will be there sitting like that, and then I'll screw the Dash 10 90 onto it. So hopefully that works for me. I I could have, I suppose, went with a lot bigger, you know, dash 16 or 20 or something, and this would have been big enough to do that, but, you know, or I wouldn't have needed this fitting. But I think this will work fine. I don't think it's going to look goofy. I was trying to do it so I do as least amount of damage to the valve cover, because it is chrome, so hopefully the heat doesn't affect it. But we'll look at this here, if I can. So it's going to be a little tight in here with the hose. I already kind of tested it, and it's going to be a little tight in here. The one issue that I have too is I have to be able to put oil in the engine too. There is, you know, the breather, the PCV port in the back of the intake here, but I don't want to have to try and mess with that with all the wiring back there. So I either have to fill the engine up with oil here or over there. So that was one of the reasons I even went with the rubber grommets here, is so that I can actually remove this and put it back in. You know, you could have made something glued in here or whatever, but then every time you want to change oil, you know, it's going to be a pain in the ass to take that apart and whatnot. So the it should be pretty easy yet though with a dash 10 to be able to just unscrew the hose and then put a funnel in it and then still fill the engine that way. So that's my hope right there, and I think it should work. But we'll get the intake and stuff off of there and the valve covers, and then I'll probably end up these here, we'll weld them from the inside. So I'm hoping it's not too oil soaked, where I can get a good clean weld on here. And then I should be able to weld that to there, get it nice and centered, and if I want to drill that hole any bigger I can. And then it should be easy as far as just making up some hoses and getting it mounted, and we should be done. One of my other challenges too was where to mount it in here, the catch can, with the supercharger and everything in here, and just wiring in general on these newer cars. Not that this is a brand new car, but they just get busy in here. They get so filled up with stuff. So, you know, different areas, I guess I could have mounted it kind of in this area, maybe back in that corner. You know, it just got so busy. I kind of wanted to mount it here, but there's not a whole heck of a lot of room. And then you also want to be able to get access to the catch can to drain it. So, you know, I kind of thought, well, I could clean up back there. There's not a lot of great spots to put it. So yeah, you got to kind of, depending on your application, you got to be able to access it, to drain it. If you want to drain, I suppose you could put a little hose or something on the bottom of here and run it off to the side if it's in a tight spot. But you also have your hoses that I don't necessarily want hoses just dangling all over in here. So you want them kind of, I don't know, I didn't want to see the hoses necessarily, so if I could have put it back in that corner, I would have, you know, hit them around the back of the motor, and then this one back here could have just shot straight over. What I'm going to end up doing here is actually mounting it down in here on the frame rail. There's enough room here because I think the air pump used to sit here from the factory. That is long gone. There's plenty of room to drain it down below. It's easy access, there should be. So there should be plenty of room, you know, down here, but with I had kind of spaced it away with the bracket to clear the sway bar and the AC lines and everything else. This line, I'm basically going to run from right here up and over and then down, and then the other one's just going to shoot straight back and kind of down into it. And I think that'll work fine, be out of the way. You won't necessarily see a lot of the hoses, or it'll kind of blend in. So we'll get this apart, get into it, get the valve cover off here. I got the baffle taken out of there. That was sitting in there with 4 screws holding that in. So I got my hole here. I'm going to be trying to weld that bung in here. And being these are aluminum, I think they're cast aluminum, and then they're chromed. I'm hoping I'll be able to weld that to here without any issues. But anytime you chrome something, they typically put copper, I believe, on first. So they coat it with copper, and then they coat it with chrome. So as I'm trying to make sure that I got good aluminum in here, I kind of got some of it ground down. But if I turn it this way, you can see the copper there. So I'm trying to grind through the chrome and the copper down to the aluminum, so I got it nice and clean. So I got to finish up the inside of the hole there. And then I'm also going to do kind of the top surface here too. I'll do that next here, but so that there's a little, it's taken a little bit of material off, but so it should sit in there like that. And then I should just be able to lay a bead around there. It's gonna be a little difficult kind of to get in here with the TIG welder and everything, but I might just be able to melt it and not have to use any filler. That's what my hope is, but I just got to make sure this is all nice and clean in here, and no oil residue, or get that copper and that chrome out of there, get down the aluminum, and I should be able to basically get them in sealed up nice, and I have no issues. And on the top side, it's basically going to look like that. So should blend in pretty decent, and then I'll just have to TIG weld the other piece on top of that. I've got the chrome and the copper basically cleaned up in that hole there now, so I'm about ready to see if I can get that thing tack welded in there. I do have it taped up, just kind of holding the bung in place. There's a little bit of a gap, more gap than I'd love to have there around the edges, but it should work. It's a little tight in here if I need to use filler to get both hands in here, and the TIG torch and everything. But I'm going to try and just melt around there and get this all sealed up here. And then I should be able to weld that -10 bung on this side of it once I'm all done. But should be clean enough to do it, so we'll give it a try here and see how it turns out. There, I don't think that turned out too bad. That looks like it's sealed up pretty good. Turned out pretty nice. There's a little bit of a, you can see there's just a slight bit of gap there. I don't know why that's there, if that's when I put my first tack on there that it did that, or if it just didn't sit in there all the way, but that should be fine. You don't really notice it when it's sitting up like this, so. But that looks pretty good, I think. And we'll get that, we'll do the other one here, the other valve cover, let this cool down just a little bit, and then we can tack the bung that's on the top here, that -10 on there, and hopefully that turns out all right, because this part you're going to see, so we'll have to take a little bit more care on that one. All right, I think those turned out okay. It's maybe not my best welding, but they should be sealed up and nice and solid there, so I should be able to put these back on the car. I'll just have to finish kind of getting them cleaned up, get new gaskets on them, and get those, like I said, back on the car. And we can probably get the catch can installed and then get our hoses made up. All right, I got my valve covers all wrapped up here, so I got the rest of the engine put back together. I can see there's the one port, and then the one on the other side here. This one's a little tight just because the intake and the AC line and everything is right here, but I should still be able to put oil in it, either this side or that side, I guess, with a funnel. And my fitting does fit in here yet, so now I can turn my attention to getting the catch can mounted up down here. I already have my bracket kind of mounted right there. I'll show you underneath, but I have to mount that first, and then get the catch can mounted on it second, just the way the bolts go into the frame and everything. But get that mounted, and then I can make my lines, and it shouldn't be too much longer, and that thing will be wrapped up. So there was a couple existing holes right here in the frame, which I just kind of tapped to a 5/16 bolt. And you can see it just clears this little splash shield here. And then I have my Delta Pag controller off to the side. So it just kind of fits in here, but I did have to kind of tie up the AC lines out of the way so the filter clears. But it sits here, and then the filter kind of sits just below the alternator. If you have a smog pump, whatever, it ain't gonna fit in this spot. But mine does. And then I just got this cable here, or wire, will sit in between there, the frame and the catch can. And there's plenty of room, down to be able to reach up in here and drain it. There's nothing below it. So I can put a pan below and everything, but we'll get that mounted. All right, if I didn't mention it, this is a -10 size hose and fitting. And basically, I'm using a AN style fitting and hose. This is just a rubber lined hose here. So nothing real fancy. Doesn't have to have a lot of pressure that it has to handle. So, but one little tip here, anytime I put these fittings together and screw them together, I always put some sort of marker, or take a pen or a paint pen and mark the hose when I actually have the first nut down here. And then when you screw this part of the fitting into it, you can tell if the hose slides back or not. You don't want that hose moving back at all, because then it's not making you're just pushing it through the first fitting here. So just be aware that when you put these things together, sometimes if you don't have a mark on there, it's hard to tell if it moved at all. So I'm going to be running a 45 on the catch can side, and then I'll have a 90 on the other side, on the valve cover side. So the one valve cover I actually could run a little bit tighter degree angle here than 90, like maybe a 120 or a 100 degree or something like that might look a little better or fit better, but I just figured I'd pick up 2 of each. But now I just got to cut the hose to the length and get the other one made up, and we should be good to go. All right, hoses are made up and installed. Hopefully you can kind of see where I got them routed here. Basically mounted right there, and then both hoses come off the back side there at a 45. And then just run over here. All right, I'm going to get this thing down on the ground, and we're going to go for a little test drive, see how this new transmission does, and check out that new catch can. All right, I was getting ready to back this thing out and take it for a test drive. And I don't know if you remember my last video, I had this thing idle really high and take off with the RPM and kind of pulsate up and down. I think I figured out what actually was happening there. I did mess with the tune last time a little bit, but I think this time I figured it out. And it has to do with, basically I didn't have the idle set perfectly, the idle screw. So just in case you ever run into this, but on mine, my idle screw is back here. I had to lower that a little bit. Basically, when I was in here messing around, see if I can show you this. Whoops. Come on. So just kind of watching some stats and stuff like that on here in the Holley system and trying to figure out what's going on, if it's an O2 sensor or whatever, and doing some research. The Holley system wants the idle air control position, which is this right here, your idle air control. It wants this to be doing 5 to 15% of the idling or work at idle. So once the engine is fully warmed up, what you do is you come in and you kind of pay attention to this idle air control down here. Right now it's at 30%, but when it's idling warm, and like I got my RPM set at, my idle RPM set at 900, so it should be doing 5 to 15% that it can to try and keep it at 900 PSI, or 900 RPM. So you just adjust the idle up or down. The more you adjust the idle open, so the more open that throttle blade is, the less work that this is going to have to do. So the further shut it is, the more this is going to have to do work. So I basically had to adjust that until my reading was basically between 5 and 15%. Once that got there, it was hovering around that 900 RPM where I had it. I don't know why that opened. Like before, I never did have I never would get the idle to come down. You know, on here it was commanded to do 900 RPM, but it would sit there around 950, whatever. So that's part of my problem. Now idle's nice and low. Basically what was happening is it would idle fine if you started up and just let it idle. You'd have no issues, but the minute you give it a little throttle and use the clutch and move it forward or back a little bit, the idle would want to just take off and go nuts on you and kind of idle high for a while, and then eventually it would come down. So that seems to be taking care of all that. So, but yeah, in the future, I'll have to kind of watch that. It's a little tricky to get that right around that 5 to 15%. It doesn't take much of the tuning of the idle screw up or down to adjust that. So right now it seems to be working good. I'm going to let it actually cool down overnight and see how it does on a cold start now that everything is set good. I'll put the intake tube back on and whatnot, but yeah, just I didn't know what to do there for a while because it was just going nuts on me, and I didn't know if it was O2 sensor or whatever sensor going on there, but just easy idle fix there, or idle adjustment fix. So just something to keep in mind if you guys run into this. So tomorrow morning I'll hop in this thing and we'll take it for a test drive and see what it does. All right, it's the next day. Let's see if those adjustments to the idle did any good. It says a cold start, so we'll see how this thing does. We'll have to let it warm up first, get up to operating temperature to see if this thing, everything stayed in there and it's going to work. So it should be idling around 900 once it's fully warmed up. So we're just under 1,000, starting to drop. As the coolant temp sensor comes up, but hopefully this works. Normally it did it just off of idle. So like when you put it into gear, forward or back, put it in reverse, then it would start to surge a little bit. So the idle air is at about 30% right now, and it's slowly dropping. Should hopefully fall between that 5 and 15%. Every time you move or you tighten the jam nut on that throttle adjustment, or on the throttle screw, idle screw I should say, it would change it enough. So that's why it's a little tricky to get that 5 to 15%. So I tried to really be careful this last time and see where it ends up. So all right, we're about 190 degrees coolant temp. Looks like we're at about 20% idle air control. So it's still falling slowly. I'm just going to give it a little try. By now it should act up if we just kind of a little bit forward, a little reverse. So far, way better. I think we're going to be able to take it for a spin here. That seems to be way better. So far shifting pretty good. I don't hear any noises. I still have to calibrate the speedometer, so I don't know how fast I'm going. So far, the lockout solenoid working. clutch pedal is very light, so it feels pretty good. So far, shifting pretty good. I don't feel any vibrations or anything. Only probably doing about 40, 45, something like that. So we'll get that calibrated, that speedo calibrated. Otherwise, it feels pretty good so far. I think I got that surging taken care of. All right, that's going to wrap it up here, guys. Car seems to be running pretty good. I don't see any oil leaks as far as my catch can, my hoses, my valve covers and stuff like that. The transmission seems to be good. I am going to have to change up the rear end ratio in the rear end just because it's at about 70 in 6th gear. You're running about 1500 RPM. It's a little low, so I'll probably put like a 355 or a 373 in here. I haven't decided yet. There are some gear ratio calculators you can do online. Tremec has a pretty good one. So I'm going to play around with that for a little bit. Kind of shows you what each gear speed is and stuff like that. So, but for the most part, I'm going to kind of drive it for a little bit the way it is. It's okay. I can kind of drive it in 5th gear if I have to until I get up to about 75. Then I can put it in 6th. But for the most part, this car just seems to be a whole different car now. It sounds a little different. I don't know if that's just the RPM it runs at. But it just sounds raspier or meaner. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it sounds different. It just feels weird, different in a good way. So far I'm loving this conversion and everything I've done to it so far. So until next time, guys, we'll see you later. Thanks.